Debbie, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
It was so funny before we hit record. You and I were talking and we were talking about, oh, what time zone are you? And then I said I was in Cleveland. And after a little bit of discovery, we found out that your brother and sister in law live in the same city as me, literally in the same town, which is like a suburb of Cleveland, and 8 minutes away. That's so crazy.
So crazy. It just goes to show what a small world it is, right?
It really is. And it's so interesting. You can find commonalities with so many people. So I want to dive into so many of the things that you're doing, but it would be so helpful just if you could share a little bit of your background, anything that you think would be helpful just to help us get to know you a little bit better.
Sure. So I spent about 40 years or so being a family caregiver. Started when I was 17 and my dad had a massive stroke and survived. And he lived for 30 years and I was his caregiver. He did not live with me, but I was his person for everything. And then my oldest son, when he was born, he was diagnosed on the autism spectrum. And then my husband, several years later, started to have both physical and mental health challenges. And it eventually did culminate in him passing away about a year and a half ago. So honestly, for most of my life, I felt that I was a victim of my circumstances. Why did I get this tough break? Why is this all happening to me? And around 50, I had a bit of an epiphany. And now I'm turning towards 61 in the next few weeks. And so over the past decade, I've been able to shift my mindset and change my life.
So, do you identify as being a nurturer, or did the caregiver role come naturally to you, or was it something that was hard?
I think it did come naturally to me. I think honestly, at 17, it gave me a little bit of self worth and purpose. And people were so impressed at how I was stepping up to take care of my father
Mm.
that it actually helped me to grow as a person.
Mhm.
But at 17, did I know that I would be able to do it at that age? Who even thinks about such a thing? Don't get me wrong, there's a difference of being a professional caregiver. Nursing and none of that was ever anything that I was interested in. And that's not what I did as a family caregiver for the most part. But yes, I would say, I think as most women are, I'm definitely a nurturer and I want to take care of everyone and fix everyone's problems.
Wow. And you said that your husband started experiencing some physical and emotional challenges, some mental health challenges. Tell me a little bit more about what that experience was like for you as you were watching your husband starting to have these experiences.
After he turned 50, he was 6 years older than I am. I used to joke that he was going through male menopause
Mhm.
because I really noticed a shift in his mind, his physical health, but also I didn't realize at the time that his mental health was deteriorating. And at that point, other than ADHD, he didn't have any mental health diagnoses. And I later came to realize that he was suffering from anxiety and then later on with depression. And he just never took care of himself. So he had a lot of things. He always had Crohn's disease, and then he became diabetic. And then all of these things added to other ancillary diagnoses and physical problems. But honestly, it was harder dealing with his anxiety and depression because I didn't have any experience with that. And like I said, I didn't even realize that I was dealing with an illness. So I got very frustrated with him. He just was non compliant. He would get very anxious about the smallest things that would set him off. He and I also worked together. And I have my own insurance agency. It's actually in my name. And when that started seeping into business, affecting my team members, the customers, boy, that just created another problem until eventually his anxiety got so bad that he just walked out of the office one day and said, I can never go back there. And he never came back. I couldn't even get him back to say, Gary, just tell me what you haven't done. Who do I need to call? He left his desk in piles, in a mess. I said, I'll bring it home. You don't have to. Nope, nope. He couldn't do it. Left me in a bind in that way. All this was going on. And then out of the blue, he got diagnosed with terminal blood cancer, having nothing to do with any of the other things. It was crazy. And let me just add, about 6 weeks prior to that diagnosis, for the first time in his life, he was actually hospitalized for his anxiety and depression and had come out a different person in a good way.
Wow.
He was excited about life. He was open to therapy and he just had the best mindset. We felt so hopeful. And
Hmm.
then 6 weeks later, he gets this news.
I believe everything's interconnected. Even if there isn't some sort of obvious connection, you just don't even know at the subconscious level if he was aware that something was happening internally for him. Do you think that?
I do think that. There was just so many different things going on. I definitely do agree with you. They were
Yeah.
all interconnected.
Hmm. So you wrote a book, and I know you're going to be releasing a second book. It's a memoir, and it was a best-selling book, and it's called On Second Thought, Maybe I Can. So when did you write your book?
So I actually wrote it while Gary was dying.
Mhm.
And unintentionally, that happened. Let me just say that I am not that person who said their whole life, oh, I want to write a book. I never wanted to write a book. I consider myself as a numbers girl. I am a CPA, and then I switched careers and have run my own insurance agency for almost 30 years. None of that has anything to do with writing. In college, I would look at the course syllabus and be like, if there's a term paper, I'm not taking that class. And one thing led to another that brought me to this idea of writing a memoir. And I thought, that'll never happen. If I really want to do it, I'm going to have to find the money to pay someone to write this because I don't know how to do it. And one day I was listening to a podcast and I heard a woman being interviewed who helped first time authors get their story out there. And I thought, maybe I'm hearing this for a reason. And I really liked her from listening. And I contacted her and really connected with her. And she was starting this 12-week course for first time authors. And so, just as I was about to join, Gary gets the diagnosis. And so I was seeing a therapist at the time, and said to her, clearly, I can't do this now. And the therapist said to me, I disagree. I think this is the perfect time because you're going to need something just for yourself that's separate from everything that's going on with Gary and the rest of your family. And I said, but what if I can't do what's expected of me? Like I had all of these anxiety of not showing up as the A student. And she said, who cares? Let it go. And that's what I did. For the first month, I thought, yeah, I'm still not really writing this book. And when he died, I was 3 chapters shy of finishing.
Did you work with that woman?
Yeah, so I took the course and we met once a week online and there was videos to watch and whatnot, but you still have to figure it out on your own.
Sure.
And it took me a little bit to figure out. And in my own mind, I needed to be clear on what's it going to look like and what are the chapters going to be and where do I even start writing. Once I got the framework, then it got a lot easier to plug in the details.
Mm. So when you decided to do this and you were writing it, was it cathartic for you to be able to write while you were experiencing what was happening with your husband?
Absolutely. I was very diligent about making sure that I was writing on a regular basis, almost every day.
Yeah.
And because my life had changed completely, I was very lucky at that time that I was basically home with my husband full time. I didn't have to go to my office. I had a team that was handling everything there. So I went, but not very often. And I would schedule either I'm going to write at 6 a.m. before he gets up, or I'm going to tell him at 2 o'clock when he's okay and doing resting, whatever, I'm going upstairs for an hour. Don't bother me unless it's an emergency. Or when he was in the hospital, I would bring so much stuff that people thought I was moving into the hospital. And then when he was sleeping in the hospital, I would take out my computer and start writing. And
Mhm.
it was cathartic, even though I was often putting myself having to write about difficult things in my past that really took me right back emotionally into that story. Whatever I was writing about, it was still different than what I was experiencing. And it gave me like a little bit of excitement. Wow. After I got a little further, I'm like, I'm doing this. Like maybe this is going to really happen. And then it gets exciting.
Yeah. How did you come up with the title of the book?
So about a year before, had worked a little bit with a guy who is a story coach, which I didn't know what that was. It was basically someone who helps you take the story of your life and figure out what you have to offer other people, so to speak. And as I told the story, he said, your life is really about a lot of maybe I cans. And I was like, what? I don't see that. What are you talking about? And then he said it, and he was talking about it something a little bit different than what I resonate with. And so that had always stuck in my mind. And after somehow I didn't have the title at first, but then you write it and it just jumped out at me that it became so obvious that's what it had to be. And the on second thought, a lot of people just leave that out of the title, which I understand, but to me that is a crucial part of the title. And here's where it came from for me. My whole life, anytime anyone asked me to do something, and it didn't have to be as big as write a book. It could be like, do you want to learn how to roller skate? I can't. My knee jerk reaction was, I can't. There was always a reason. And what I've learned over the past decade is that typically that I can't is fear based because you don't want to be embarrassed, you don't want to fail, whatever the reason is. And if you just wait a beat after that, that's where the on second thought comes. It's a minute. Why not? Why can't I? And so I think that so many of us are quick to just say, no, I can't. And if we really think about it, there are so many things that opportunities that come up in front of us that I think sometimes a lot of us know, oh, I really would like to give that a try. But then those limiting beliefs, all those excuses, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve this, whatever it is for you, they peek right in and that's it. That's where you put up the stop sign.
When you had this realization, when you were coming up with the title, how did that change then how you approached your life, if at all?
The funny thing is that now all my friends throw it in my face if I say no to something. They say, wait a second, what happened to maybe I can? I do. It still is my first thought a lot of times, but now I don't let it be my last thought. I take it further and
Yeah.
say, do I really not want to do this or am I just scared?
Yeah. Did you know your book was going to be a memoir? Like when you set out to write it?
I didn't really even understand the difference between a memoir, a biography, a self help book. No, I had no idea what it was going to be. After I started learning a little bit about the descriptions, I did have to make, or I did make the conscious decision that it was just going to be basically, it's a bunch of stories, right? The first third is how I did develop those limiting beliefs as a child. And then the middle part is how I started experiencing one tough situation after another and what my mindset was. And then the last part is what's happened over the last decade since I turned 50 and what has shifted. But none of the book gives you any advice. It's just read the stories, relate to them, and hopefully be inspired.
Yeah. Did anything shift in your own mind as you were reflecting back? Because it's one thing to live our life, and then it's another maybe to look back older, wiser, more mature with growth and stuff, like re-looking at the experiences that you've had?
Absolutely, especially as I learn more and more about personal development, personal growth. You look back and you're like, oh, so that's why I feel that way. Oh,
Mhm.
so that's where this comes from. So, yes, it's definitely helped me with my own development for sure.
Mhm. And now you're writing another book, or you've written it.
I've written it.
You've written it? Okay. Why another book, and how is this one different?
So, I have to say that after I wrote my first book, I think, or while I was writing my first book, Lauren, the woman that I took the course with, said to me, I don't know what it is. I feel like you're going to write 20 books. I said, 20? Do you know how old I am? 20? I think you're crazy. And I was writing one book. That was it. The minute that I was done, I was like, oh, now I have to write about this. And
Mhm,
now I'm thinking to myself after the second one, now this and now this. I have so many ideas. I never had one idea.
mhm,
So I knew that after the first book, I knew that the second book I wanted to write was now something to give everybody more practical advice about what I've learned, almost like personal development 101. I
mhm.
didn't realize some of these things had a name. I didn't listen to any personal development podcasts. I knew nothing. And I wished that I had someone who, at the beginning of my journey, just gave me an overview or where to start. Or, I got to that point where it was like, okay, something has to change. I don't know what. I don't know how to start. I don't know what it is. And that's what I was looking to do, is really reach those people who felt like I did. So
Yeah.
now this book is called The Sprinkle Effect, a guide to creating a more colorful and fulfilling life.
Mm,
And because I love rainbow sprinkles. So there's 15 sprinkles, like a sprinkle of courage, a sprinkle of action, a sprinkle of discipline, curiosity, joy, all different things that you can sprinkle into your life. And so each chapter is just an explanation about what that sprinkle is all about. And then I do usually share a story, and then activities and journal prompts and practical tips to get you started on your own journey of incorporating that sprinkle into your life.
I would love to ask about some of these sprinkles as I think about what you've shared already. You're a young woman who is caring for an elderly parent, which many people are going to be at that stage at some point in their life. You are raising a child who is neurodivergent, which brings on a whole set of challenges, right? Many people are also parenting or taking care of loved ones that require additional assistance and support. You lost your husband and had to figure out what his life looked like after that. So, do you have some sprinkles maybe in those categories specifically that you talk about that would be helpful? I think that there's probably someone listening that could benefit from hearing some of your experiences.
So, the sprinkle that has made the biggest difference in my life is a sprinkle of responsibility. And I don't mean responsibility like being responsible for other people, as you've just described. I
Mm,
have for a good part of my life, and I think a lot of women have. Prior to learning about this, I felt like I was a victim of my circumstances. All those things and more that you've mentioned, like I said in the beginning, why me? Why is this my life? What have I done to deserve this? I'm a good person, right? All of that kind of questioning. And the sprinkle of responsibility stems from an idea. And for me, what really drilled it in was this formula from the book The Success Principles by Jack Canfield and Janet Switzer, called E plus R equals O. E is the event, R is your response, and O is the outcome. So there's an event, add in how you respond to that event, and that equals the outcome. My whole life, I was just living like the event happens and that's the outcome. I had nothing to do with it. How I react doesn't matter. And on a broader scale, if you think about people who have come from really horrific backgrounds, poverty, abuse, all different things, some people just stay there. This is what their life is, while others are able to get out and rise above. And
Mhm.
what is the difference? When you think about celebrities like Oprah, think about what her background is. She didn't have someone who came in and just took her hand and said, "Oh, here you go. I'm going to give you this incredible life."
Yeah.
No, she took responsibility and said, "All those things don't matter. I know what I want, and I'm going to figure out a way to go and get it." And I was living having no responsibility for any of the decisions I've made, how I was thinking about things, none of it. And even though it's not the idea of looking back and berating myself, it's now empowering. Regardless of what happens, think about how many choices and decisions that we all make every single day. That's empowering.
Mhm.
And that mindset shift was everything to me because that said, I have the power. If I'm not happy in an area of my life, I have the power to change that, regardless of my circumstances, regardless of my age. I don't care what you tell me your life is like. You can do something to move it in the direction that you want to go.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh my God. What an amazing life lesson. And it's so true is no one's going to take you by the hand and show you
Nope.
the way. And also, no one can move you. Sometimes people are just immovable. Even if you have someone that's a guide, you have to be willing to acknowledge that I'm not going to stay stuck where I am. This is not my permanent place, even if it's temporary.
Absolutely. And for so long, I'd be like, again, with the I can't do that. I'm taking care of my father. Oh, you don't have this. Look at you. Your life is so easy. That whole comparison, horrible thing.
Yeah.
Your life is so easy. Look at poor me. I can't do that. Oh, someone out there could be listening going, oh, yeah, easy for them to say. They don't know what's going on with me. I don't care what's going on with you. You can do it.
Yeah. Your entire energy shifts when you talk about these sprinkles because I can tell you are so believe in it and you're so convicted. Any other favorite sprinkles that you think would be helpful to share?
Curiosity. It wasn't until I opened myself up and said, even though journaling, meditating, yeah, I don't do that. Right away, I don't do that. I can't do that. And the writing, so many different things. Yeah, some things I tried and they're not for me, and that's okay. But I've found so many things
Mm.
now that I love that are such a part of my life that I never would have found if I didn't allow myself to be open and curious.
Mhm.
And look, I found writing. What? Honestly, you can't know how crazy that is. But I actually never would have found it if I hadn't been open to journaling, which was something I hated the idea of. So you just never know where one thing is going to lead you to.
Yeah.
But if you're not open and curious, then you're going to stay stuck.
Yeah. And curiosity is such a wonderful place to bring yourself to because if you're in the negative emotional frequencies and spiral, it's really hard to tell someone who is angry or maybe feels depressed or any of these lower feelings to suddenly be joyful. No, but if you can get to curious, you can start to ask better questions. You can start to open yourself up to more possibilities, and curiosity gets you to the whole other levels. Where did you find curiosity? Was this something that just came naturally to you, or is this something that you worked on?
Something I worked on, I think I had been curious about a lot of things, but was afraid.
Yeah.
It came back to my limiting beliefs of what if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if I embarrass myself? What if someone judges me? All of those things, it came back to that. And it's like anything else. Once you try one little thing and you get a little taste, and it sparks a little bit of excitement inside of you, or a little bit of a passion you never knew you had. You're like,
Yeah.
now you want more, right? What else is out there? So it just really was getting started.
Yeah. So many people, if they lose someone close to them, especially their partner, we don't usually plan for that, right? We think of, oh, we're going to retire, we're going to go take all these trips, and we're going to do all this stuff, and we have these plans. What has surprised you about life after losing your partner?
What surprised me is that even though for me it was maybe a little bit different because, like I said, he had stopped working, he did have struggles with mental illness. It was very difficult to be married to him for the last
Yeah.
5+ years, honestly.
Yeah.
And so we hadn't been a couple. He couldn't go out and do anything with me socially. I was going out with just my friends. He couldn't take vacations. I was only going on girls' trips. He couldn't earn money and all of these things. And with that, I would think to myself, I'm already prepared.
Hmm.
And I wasn't. It didn't matter that he couldn't do those things. He was still with me. And I could still talk to him. And as far as my kids are concerned, I think to myself, gosh, there's nobody else now who understands that love and pride or worry as you feel as a parent. And I don't think I was prepared for a different feeling of loneliness. Again, even though we weren't in the traditional sense doing things as a couple,
Sure. Yeah.
it still feels different.
Yeah. And how are you embracing, if you can use that word, how are you choosing to redefine what your life looks like now?
I think it's scary because, like you said, you're still even dreaming as a couple and can't imagine the idea that you're going to be on your own and looking forward into the later part of my life. Where do I want to go? What do I want to do? So I guess I trying to look at it as exciting. I can forge that path. I don't want to say I don't have to worry about somebody else's desires, trying to look at it like that. But I have to say, it is really tough because most of my friends are married or part of a couple, or even when they are complaining about their spouses, which we all do, at least most of us do, I think I wish I had a spouse to complain about. I have embraced the fact that, okay, first of all, my husband used to do all the cooking and food shopping. The last couple of years, he couldn't. I don't know how to cook. I don't want to cook. I don't like to cook. So I've been forced to do some of those things that I've never wanted to, and at least see, okay, I can really with the cooking. If I'm sure I can, it's that I really don't want to. The first 3 months, right after he died, my hot water heater leaked and broke. Water was coming through my ceiling. All of these like household things that even if he were there, I could say, Garrett, what do I do? Who do I call? What do you think it is? So just realizing I can figure it out. I might not want to have to figure it out, but I can figure it out. And so I don't need to be afraid of some of the things, even at work. When he left work, there were things that he did that I knew nothing about, that I didn't want to know anything about. And that scared the heck out of me after he left. But I learned. And so I think just like everything, even though it might be an area I never wanted to learn about, I still can learn about it and I can still figure it out. And
Yeah.
so I don't need anybody else to help me in that way. Of course, yes, I need people to call and all of that, but I can figure it out. And so I think that's empowering and it makes moving forward by myself a little less scary.
Yeah. Your memoir, no doubt, is very interesting because just what you've shared now has me really curious about the stories. And I love the sprinkles that you've shared with us. Thank you for your generosity in doing that. I think we all need to be reminded and sometimes of these lessons. And sometimes it's easier listening to someone else's story and seeing maybe ourselves in their experiences. And so many of the things that you talked about may not be common, but they are universal to many of us in one way or another. So, one of the questions I always ask everyone is tied to the title of the podcast, which is, what does it mean to you to live the width of your life?
It means that I am going to continue exploring and making choices that move me towards my dream each and every day. And because of that, now each day, in the past, I used to wake up and I don't want to say drudgery, but we all just go through that familiar routine, get up, go to work, do your errands, your all of that, go to sleep and do it again.
Yeah.
And now it doesn't feel like that. Now I have a gratitude practice, which we didn't talk about, but I never understood that either. And it makes a big difference. And I'm excited every day for what I get to do, who I get to meet, like you, who I get to talk to, and who hopefully I get to impact, and who impacts me. And that changes everything.
Mhm. I love that so much. And if folks wanted to learn more about you and also your books, where can they find you, Debbie?
The best place is my website because then that leads to everything else that I've got. So my website is debbier.weiss.com. You got to put in the R because otherwise you get to a realtor in California. And that's not me.
That happens sometimes with names. I have one of those unusual ones where no one had the same URL as me.
See,
Yeah.
you're lucky.
Debbie, it's such a pleasure to meet you, and I cannot wait to read your books. Especially excited to have A Sprinkle of Hearts, right?
That's actually an online store I have. It's called The Sprinkle Effect.
The Sprinkle Effect. Okay. I love the use of sprinkles. And when will that be available?
1111.
Angel numbers. I love
That's
it.
it.
Beautiful, auspicious day. Continued success to you, Debbie.
You too. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.